Coming up on Network Africa. Ugandan troops, foreign troops, also set to leave South Sudan as part of the peace agreement signed in August to end the crisis in the country. South Africa plans to bow out as a member of the International Criminal Court as it faces stiff criticism for the non-arrest of President Omar al-Bashir. An intense drought in Zimbabwe halves maize harvest in the country. Before we go into today's lineup, welcome to Network Africa. I am Adeshewa Josh. Here are the stories that made headlines across Africa over the weekend. Well, that will come in just a moment. Well, it's a long walk to peace for South Sudan, but the journey has indeed started for the embattled country that has witnessed many elusive and failed peace deals. The narrative may be changing, however, as the two thunderbolts in the nation's decade-long crisis, President Salva Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar, continue to find ways to work together in the interest of the South Sudanese people. The recently signed peace deal in August appears to be yielding result, at least so far. Ugandan troops and other foreign forces in the country are set to pull out by the weekend. Well, this was a key rebel demand during drawn-out talks, which led to the peace deal. Meanwhile, President Salva Kiir may indeed be the clog in the wheel of the elusive process deal, as some rebel leaders now vow to take up arms again, because President Kiir's recent decree creating 18 new states is causing so much rift and a major violation of the peace deal. That's what President Salva Kiir has done by creating those 18 states. And for the latest on this development, Dr. Remember Miamingi, a South Sudanese lawyer, joins me now from South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Okay, so I believe Dr. Remember Miamingi is on the line for us, and he's about to speak to us about President Salva Kiir's decision to create 18 new states, a major violation of the peace agreement put together by regional powers backed by the United Nations, just signed in August, one of many deals that was agreed and that is looking like is happening in South Sudan. Even though there are reports that fighting is still ongoing, many analysts believe that so far so good. This particular ceasefire and peace agreement is holding sway. I believe Dr. Remember Miamingi is now on the line with us on Network Africa. Let me just ask you, South Sudan's peace deal is largely holding, at least a lot of people believe that, as foreign troops begin to pull out of the country. However, it looks like President Salva Kiir is decreed to create 18 new states could be a clog in the wheel of that process. I mean, this contradicts the peace deal. What do you make of it?
Thank you very much for having me on the program. Apologies for the network. I want to, first of all, start by saying I am afraid it is not absolutely true that the peace agreement is holding. As we talk right now, there is war going on in different parts of South Sudan, and that is even affecting areas that we thought were very stable areas. And so there are concerns already that the peace agreement might not hold, not just because of the tendency of the warring parties to continue to fight, but the new dimension which you have just mentioned, which is the creation of, or purported creation of 28 states in South Sudan, is creating additional problems. First, because it is unconstitutional. Second, because it is arbitrary. And third, because it is designed to whip up ethnic sentiments, and that is already resulting into very serious problems across South Sudan. So we are on the ground thinking that very soon, probably, if care is not taken, the entire peace process might just dismantle.
I mean, that seemed to be the opinion of a lot of people, but if you ask the diplomats, especially those who have brokered the deal, they would say of all the agreements that have been made in the past that neither Salva Kiir or Riek Machar agreed to, these appear to actually be standing, and the two just need to agree not to break the rules. Do you agree to this fact?
In terms of the content, what we have on the paper is as good as it can be at the moment under the current circumstance. But the problem is that we have warring parties who believe in the extinction of the other. And as a result, it is really not about whether the agreement is good or not. The question on the table for the warring parties is whether I have it all or not. And as a result, irrespective of how good that agreement is, except there is reasonable pressure from the international community, we are going to have these parties go back to fight because they believe they must have it all.
You would agree that no one can have it all, and in this context, like you have put it, there has to be compromises. And let me ask you, some rebels have decided to pick up arms, not because they do not want to be at peace, but because they are saying that if President Salva Kiir pulls through with the creation of 18 states, they are going to go back to status quo. What is the implication of creating these new 18 states?
Now, the first problem with the creation of the new state is it was done arbitrarily and without consultation. So what we basically have happened in South Sudan is a repetition of Berlin when the continent was divided without a consent. And that is what we are having right now. And because people were not consulted and were not involved in the process, some communities felt that their land were given to others. Some also thought that the resource played significant role in the division. And so, for example, the general that who have announced that he might take up arms, his concern is that the land of his ancestors has been divided up, and a tribe that was a majority in that area now become minority in two different tribes. So as a result, people think that irrespective of the constitutionality or otherwise of the creation of the state, irrespective of its popularity in some sectors, the truth is it is intention as it stands now is to create serious problem at ethnic level. And sometimes somebody might cynically think that it's probably Salva Kiir's intention to divert attention away from serious issues, take the conflict from central and take it down to the local level. So people can be fighting themselves at the community level. So I don't personally see anything that is going to be good out of this at the moment as it stands.
So let me quickly ask you. So basically, the creation of the state of those states isn't actually the problem. It's the fact that President Kiir did not widely consult to create those states. Am I correct?
First of all, it is a problem because Salva Kiir, under the constitution, the transitional constitution of South Sudan, does not have the power to alter the boundaries of the states. That's the first problem. So he acted outside the constitution. Now, the second problem is, yes, he did that only to favor certain ethnic groups at the expense of others.
How could we ascertain that he did that to favor certain groups? You said that to create those states is actually, the decision to create those states is actually popular, is a popular view among some sector. Now, of course, the question will be how popular is it? So tell me, how can we ascertain that he did that to indeed favor certain ethnic groups?
Now, it is simple mathematics. If you look at the 28 states that we have right now on the map in South Sudan, one particular ethnic group occupies 13 of those 28 states. One ethnic group, and that is probably the ethnic group from where the president comes from. And the 13 for a particular ethnic group certainly justify my assertion. That is one. But secondly, if you look at the resource composition of those 13 states that belongs to one ethnic group, that is where we have the oil, which used to be under another ethnic group controls, but by the new division has been moved to this particular ethnic group. But thirdly, if you were to analyze those who are celebrating already putting in place nominating new governance, you will see proportionate directly that they also emanate from one ethnic group. So there is a kind of ethnic hegemony that some South Sudanese are getting worried about and can see it happening. And now it used to be in government, and now it is being moved to the structure of governance itself.
Okay, so while that debate is ongoing, because definitely there will be people who will argue for and against, as established in your explanations, let me ask you, Riek Machar has so far been unconnected, so far, to the claims by the rebels to pick up arms again if this pulls through. I mean, would you say Mr. Machar has been keeping his own end of the deal?
From an outside observer, what we have seen so far by the party is that neither of the party, Riek Machar or Salva Kiir, exercise effective and meaningful command and control on the generals that are fighting on their side. Now, the implication of that is whether Riek Machar is interested or not, if some of his generals want to take on arms, there's nothing he can do about it, because in the first place, there was no effective command control that existed between him and those rebels. So he probably might try his best, and I think that there is no evidence to suggest that he wants to go and pick up arms himself, but there is nothing he or Salva Kiir can do about those who are fighting right now because they don't control them.
Dr. Remember Miamengi, as a South Sudanese lawyer, currently also a human rights activist at the University of Pretoria. He's been speaking to us from South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you so much for the privilege.
And coming up on Network Africa, counting begins in Guinea after a second peaceful election since gaining independence in 1958.